Chuck Clark is the dude, man.
Yeah,
That's where I'm starting off. And like, look, it feels like you find like that one vet min, long in the tooth veteran that just kind of fits you every year. And clearly the Lions are in need of depth and potential starting help at safety. And I've mentioned this before, like free agency preview, you kind of look for guys like that might fit. And Clark was one of those guys that I put down. And it's weird to me that this is a guy that struggled to find a home last off season. And when I talked to him a couple days ago, like his phone wasn't blowing up, despite a pretty decent season last year in Pittsburgh. Like I think the Lions were kind of his first and only call, but he looked at it and goes, that's a situation I can mess with. He's quickly slid into first team reps, and it seems like, I don't even think it seems like it is a fact that this coaching staff kind of has an instant love for him. And I think what really stands out to them is kind of his alpha communication techniques. Had this ability to be loud, to be right, to get guys on the same page. And, really the question mark is, as Shep said, what is his limitations physically 10 years into his career? Well, end of game situation the other day in practice, and who's stepping in front of a Jared Goff pass and ending it with a pick? It's Chuck Clark. And so, I think we all looked at Christian Izien signing as kind of the first man up in that safety room, but I would not be surprised if by the time we get to the end of training camp, like Clark is that first option, both free and strong. I just think he has the ability to kind of do it all. But I walk away from this mini camp feeling really, really good about the safety depth they built. I thought it looked good on paper, and I think it looks really good kind of practically here in the padless part of practices.
Yeah, I'll say this for Chuck Clark, and then Colton, you can jump in. He definitely has a sort of all business, no nonsense demeanor that Kelvin Shepherd loves in defensive players. In fact, Kelvin Shepherd said last week, like, I haven't seen this guy smile once since stepping into the building, which probably paints him as like a little bit more austere or Spartan than he really is. J-Rod, you and I discussed this yesterday. He actually seems pretty friendly off the field, but
for sure.
When I asked David Correo yesterday, or Jim O'Neill, safety's coach, has he seen Chuck Clark smile yet? He said, well, yeah, he smiled after that interception on Tuesday. So that was definitely a reason for the defense to celebrate. And look, that was one of 3 interceptions in practice on Tuesday, and they probably could have had 4 or 5. So early on, signs of this defense, even while depleted, getting its hands on some footballs.
Yeah, I think the main thing with the safety position right now is that they've got options. I know it's been kind of doom and gloom with, your starters out there. And, I kind of watched, Branch and Kirby a little bit after practice, kind of, chatting. And, you hope those guys can come back sooner rather than later. But, in terms of what they have right now, it feels like they feel pretty secure with the depth that they've built from the moves they've made this offseason. And I know maybe the fan base doesn't really reflect that. But you get out here and you see Chuck Clark making plays. You see Christian Izien. And, I think Lions fans have probably seen him from those battles with the Bucs over the years. Like, he's a guy that was trusted to play for that defense and Todd Bowles there in Tampa. So they've got some options. And the fact that we're talking about, like, Thomas Harper, a guy that played a lot of football last year for the Lions, he's a depth piece right now with those guys kind of leading the way. Kind of speaks to how they feel about that room right now. So I do think they're in a good spot. Just to throw out another name, a guy that I've been a little bit surprised at, like with maybe the amount of reps that he's getting is Tyler Lacey. He's a guy that, obviously he was getting a lot of time last year just out of necessity, but, I didn't know if he would be the first guy out there, what that would look like, what that rotation looks like after you've made some moves in that defensive end room to address the depth. And, he's playing that big end role in a lot of the packages that we were seeing out there, and getting a lot of reps with the first team defense. And, that might be subject to change when Derek Moore gets his feet wet a little bit and you get in training camp and the pads really go on. But in terms of where things are right now, it seems like, they like Tyler Lacey a lot and trying to get a really good look at him right now.
Your lineups. And today, let's go through it. So as you can see over here, we got 2 for the Lions on the season. We're going over in the new offense with Drew passing touchdowns for Jared Goff, 27.5. He's had 30 plus multiple times with the Detroit Lions. We're running this thing back. Give me more with Isaac Teslam and Ross St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams, a healthy Sam Laporta in this offense. I'll take it. Easy schedule. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm going to go more. 1,199.5. So we're going 1,200 for Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground. And this offense, again, with the Drew Petzing offense, better offensive line. You can copy these picks and tail my picks, or you can do your own lineups. But again, use that code HMA and play $5, get $50 instantly in your lineups.
Playing inside too a little bit, and like there's obviously a gaping hole in the middle of that defensive line. And when I asked Casey Rogers about that yesterday and the pieces they lost in the middle, his response was, "Yeah, we sure did." And it very much remains to be seen based on his answer who steps into that void. But they've experimented a little bit with Lacey in there. I don't think Tyleik Williams cuts the profile of a nose tackle. I'm not sure really anyone does on this roster who has significant NFL experience. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I've got like a broader take for you guys on spring practices and kind of who's trending up. And hear me out here. I try not to make any grand conclusions this early in the season, and I won't. What I will say is that one of the hidden benefits of Drew Petzing's offense might be that it tests and sharpens Shep's defense in ways that John Morton's offense couldn't, and wasn't designed to. Like we've heard a lot already this offseason, or I guess this spring, from Dan Campbell about problem solving. Like that's been the theme, it feels like, of what they wanted to accomplish over OTAs and minicamp was creating problems on both sides of the ball for the other side of the ball to solve. And he said, like, we're much further along in that department now than we were at this time last year. And then we also hear Campbell and passing game specialist David Shaw talk about trimming down the playbook to home in on the things they do well, but then also like layer nuances and twists on top of their core plays. So kind of addition by subtraction. And when I asked Campbell about it yesterday, he explained it like this: we're doing a lot of the same things, but man, there's so much that's different. Same girl, different skirt. It's the shifts, the motions, the turbos, the stacks, the stack inverted. So the presentation for the defense is different. More bells and whistles was the way he ultimately described it. And to me, and I'm sure to you guys too, it harkens back to Ben Johnson's mantra of making the same plays look different and different plays look the same. And as Campbell said yesterday, one of the aims of this is to stress the defense, like to force the players on the field to think more on their feet, to come up with answers on the fly, to communicate and function as a unit. And it sounds and maybe even looks like it's working. So senior defensive assistant David Correo, who's been here for 9 years now, said yesterday that Petzing's offense is pushing the defense, quote, into the deep end of the pool right out of the gate. And he's putting pressure on us every day with shifts, motions, new alignments, new plays. And then it's already putting us into this mode of this is what we're going to see from these advanced NFL offenses. And then safeties coach Jim O'Neill was talking about like the explosion of pre-snap motion across the NFL over the past couple seasons. And, he said that's the whole Shanahan-McVay influence where players on defense are forced into positions they're not normally in, which demands flexibility and communication, like real-time problem solving from the defense. And he said, all of that makes it harder on us as a defense, but with Drew, we get it before every play, which is great. We're seeing who can handle it and who cannot. So it felt like by the end of last season, and obviously some of this was injury related, Shep's defense was pretty rigid. Obviously they were playing tons of base, and then once the secondary was thinned out by injuries, it just kind of collapsed. And we already know they're going to play more nickel this year. He's made that pretty clear, but it feels like the overall vision is to be more flexible before the snap and then to be more fluid after it. And I feel like early on,